So I was watching Angel Reese and her press conference after the loss tonight to Caitlin Clark, and I'm a huge fan of Angel Reese, as you can see here. And I've had roughly 40 professional women's basketball players, including women from the original W, the Women's Basketball League, members of the media from Brenda Van Langen to Sarah Spain to many others. I've had incredible women from the Olympics, and I've had coaches that are coaching at the highest level on the women's side. Nikki Collin, when she was coaching the Atlanta Dream, now she's at Baylor, and Lindsay Gottlieb, who's coaching arguably one of the best players in America, and Juju Watkins, who jersey you see right over here. And it saddens me to no end, number one, to see not a player crying because it's the end of their season, because everybody pretty much cries when their season's over. But the reality is that Angel Reese gets an unbelievable amount of unfair criticism. And it is in large part because of the color of her skin, not the content of her character. You know, you've not heard Angel Reese get in trouble with the law. You haven't heard her spoken badly about from any of her teammates. All she does is amplify and help her teammates, and I would imagine her coaches, look not only amazing, but help them be the best versions of themselves. And so to see her that upset, and obviously it's in conjunction with the fact that they lost, I would imagine. So there's a little bit of crossover there in terms of emotions. But when I hear guys like Doug Gottlieb talk about some of the things that he talked about today, and some of the things I guess were fair game, this is the part where I think Doug doesn't always get it. You can't oversimplify history. From what women have been through, how hard it's been to get to this point, generational trauma, and now that we're seeing this reckoning with Caitlin Clark, and it's amplifying the women's game, it's really hard when you see white players like Caitlin Clark and Paige Beckers viewed differently in the media still and spoken about differently than someone like Angel Reese, because she puts her hands in front of her face, maybe the same way someone else does, but it's perceived differently, or because she shows a ring a few extra seconds than maybe some people liked, including myself. But it's grossly unfair. And what she's done for the college game for women's basketball, along with Caitlin Clark, along with Paige, along with Juju, is really unprecedented, and we're seeing it in the numbers. And so I just wanted to go on record and say that I think it's extremely unfair that the commentary that was made, as I mentioned in one of my previous posts, from the writer of the Los Angeles Times, Doug Gottlieb called it sort of a fun play on words. I don't remember his exact terminology, but it's not. It's degrading. Women have had to face, for let's just say since 1972, let's just say since Title IX, decades of sexism, misogyny, a double standard, and then you take women of color who don't get as much attention up until recently, the last couple of years, and then you include the LGBTQIA plus community, and it's complicated, but it's sort of simple at the same time. And men, especially white men like me, like Doug Gottlieb, like the white quarterbacks in the NFL, like all white people, we don't have to face the same things. in particular what women have had to go through. And then Doug, at one point today, in one of his, I wouldn't call it a diatribe, but in one of his posts online, that was a clip from his show today, he's like yelling at Haley Van Lith. Doug, who are you yelling at? Because your claim was that we were talking about her and the game and amplifying the game. Well, it's not how it's perceived across the board. It's not perceived the same way that the men's game is. Angel Reese has been as valuable, if not more valuable, to the women's game than DJ Burns has been in the last 3 weeks to the men's game. And it's a great story, and he's must-see TV. And for you, who's Jewish, just like me, we should have a better understanding and give someone like her more grace and be talking about her more in a positive light than we have. And some would say, well, she brought it on herself. No, she didn't. She didn't. She won a national championship last year. And what she's had to endure this last year it's nothing like I've ever seen before for someone who's won a national championship. You'd think that she was in trouble with the law. You'd think that she was doing horrible things. All she's doing is amazing NIL deals. She's amplifying her teammates. She's making her teammates better. And in my opinion, she's great for the game. But she gets a bad rap. So the media calls her names. And there's, again, sexist things that are said that you wouldn't say about guys. There's microaggressions that are called out. And a lot of times, white media members who may not even understand sports that much say things or try and use a play on words, and they're completely out of line. So anyway, shout out to Angel Reese. It's not easy to try and repeat. We haven't seen it in quite some time on the women's side. And what she did to help elevate her team this year, despite a lot of controversy. Recent article came out about her coach. I'm not going to get into that today because, she's very up and down herself and hasn't always made the right decisions herself as an old school kind of coach and an old school kind of player herself. But she's had a lot of success as a coach. But I just wanted to come on and talk about Angel Reese and how it's upsetting to see how upset she is. Not because they lost, but because of, as her teammate said, Flaugier, the weight that she's had to carry this year. And the criticism that she's received is completely unfair. And so I hope that the media takes a deep look in themselves, including Doug Gottlieb, as to how hard it's been for women to get to this point, and that we should give them more grace and amplify them more, especially Doug as a girl dad, as I am. And if you guys haven't seen the piece that Paige Beckers talked about a couple of years ago at the ESPYs, we need more of that. We need more of Haley Van Lith's amplifying and standing up for their teammates, who we couldn't possibly understand. Not one iota. I had absolutely no idea, just because I wear these shirts and these hats and trying to amplify women as much as I possibly can. Absolutely no idea what it's like to be a woman, and no idea what it's like to be a woman who's in the LGBTQIA plus community or a woman of color. And I never will. But I'll do my best to listen, because their reality is their truth.